Now, may I request Professor Virginius Kaka to make his presentation. I think he was earlier with the Delhi School of Economics and Tata Institute of Social Sciences post, and he is now with Tata Institute of Social Sciences at its Guwahati campus.
I'm extremely grateful to Professor Katakayam and Indian Sociological Society for giving me this opportunity to make presentations in this symposium. As I was reflecting on the theme, I was a little puzzled as to how one really should go about it. Where do I really pitch myself in terms of understanding the crisis of development? Am I really going to start at the global level, or am I really going to start at the national level? Am I really going to at the regional level? Where do I really locate the whole process of marginalizations at different levels? I was also wondering whether what really constitutes the crisis of development. Is it the same for all segments of the society? Does the government think of crisis, or let's say the political class or the corporate sector, is the crisis as they conceive or as they think is the same as those who are really on the margins of the society? If you really take the government or the corporate world, the crisis of development for them is primarily to do with the fact that the market or reform or the growth is really sluggish, or that there has been a lot of resistance and oppositions to the kind of development which are really taking place all over the country. Now that's what they will see as a crisis of development. But that is not what really the ordinary people, the people on the margin, are really going to think of the crisis. For them, the crisis is the loss of job, the crisis is for the fact that there's a loss of land, restriction on access to forest, there's a proletarianization, there is a loss of asset, there is increasing being thrown away from let's access to water and other kinds of natural resources. And therefore that is what really going to, what's called thought about as a crisis if you really start thinking from the margin. Now if you really take on the marginalization, and then you find that the crisis, in other words, the marginalizations and the crisis of development is in fact intertwined with each other. You find that a large chunk of people today in fact increasingly getting marginalized. And I would like to focus this whole process of marginalizations in the context of something which I'm a little more familiar, on which I've been thinking and reflecting, in the context of Adivasis in India. Now we all know that when India began the national reconstruction process in the post-independent era, I think the group or the community which was almost at the margin was nearly, other than the what's called the Dalits, it was the Adivasis. And since last 50 years, so many programs, so many efforts, so many policies, so many legislation has been worked out in order to see that there is a sustained development of the Dalits and Adivasis. Now, if you really look at these developments, what do you really find? There are three very important components. One is that there is always an effort by the state to protect the Adivasis and the Dalits. There have been an effort to mobilize them in terms of reservations, and therefore you find reservations in the political domain, reservations in employment, reservations in educational institutions. And thirdly, you find that there is always a very sustained effort to bring about a rapid economic development, not only economic development, but also you find the social and educational development of the Dalits and Adivasis. And to that extent, you find that, as I said, legislations, development programs, allocation of resources, all really been done. But what has really happened? I'm not denying the fact that in the last 60 years, there is a tangible group of the Adivasis and Dalits have benefited a lot. And this benefit has come primarily from the facilities of reservations in education institutions, in employment. As a result of which you find that a tiny middle class has grown both within the Adivasis as well as the Dalits. And I think this middle class, in fact, playing a very important role. But as India started embarking on the path of development, the development was never really smooth. In fact, there were within a lot of constraints. There was a discriminations, there was a denial, or it's called passive as well as an active. And as a result of what we really find is that there is increasing mobilizations by the Dalits and Adivasis in order to address their issues. And therefore you find that since not only in the government but also in the civil society, there were a lot of opposition, lot of resistance in giving a space to both Dalits and Adivasis in accessing benefits, in accessing development, fruits of development. You find that there was increasing alienations of the Dalits and Adivasis from wider social categories. So you find that people who were a part of the trade union movement, who were part of the working class, who were part of the peasant movement, you find by and large Dalits and Adivasis got alienated from these organizations and increasingly moved to what is known as ethnicization or ethnic politics or the caste politics. So you find that if you really look at today, you find that Adivasis and the tribals have almost moved away from that, and you find that they are organizing themselves primarily along the ethnic lines. But when they were organizing along ethnic lines, they're primarily taking the issues which in fact affects their daily lives very substantially. Now, so you find that in the context of tribe Adivasis, therefore you find that on the one hand you have all these kinds of development programs. And these development programs to some extent has acted as safety valve. Now, why is it that despite these development programs, benefits have not really gone very far? Because you find that whereas there is one set of development programs, which is coming in the form of affirmative action program, equally there is another very powerful forms of development, which is what we call the political economy of development. And therefore you find that whereas the larger political economy of development you find, then it depends on infrastructure, it depends on industry, it depends on mineral exploitations, it depends on exploitation of forest. And where do you really find this? You really find in the areas, in the interior of Odisha, interior of Andhra Pradesh, interior of Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, or interiors of, let's say, Northeast India. So where do you really, therefore, you find, therefore, that these are very important. Therefore, you find that primarily, if you really look at the crisis of development, then you find there's a contradictions primarily between what you find is the plan allocations or the plan development phases in terms of various plans, and you find the larger political economy of development, where you find the larger political economy of development can take place only at the cost of the tribes or the Dalits who live really on the margins of different states. And therefore you find that I primarily see the crisis of the marginalization is, despite the fact that various kinds of affirmative action program, is to do the fact that the affirmative action programs in fact subordinate to larger what's called program of the national reconstruction process, or the larger what's called construction process of the state and the national development. And that's where I see is the major contradictions, and that's why you find that the process of alienations, the process of marginalizations, despite 6 decades of various kinds of programs, have not really worked in the context of, let's say, Dalits, but more importantly, in the context of the Adivasis. Now, so you find that all these national projects, what has really happened to the tribals? Have the benefits of industries or infrastructure has really gone to them? How many of them have really got absorbed into these employments? And therefore, what we really find is if you take state after state in the era of what is called the national, what is called socialist reconstruction of the society, increasingly you find that tribals were increasingly being thrown away from the land, forest, and other kinds of resources. Whereas they constitute only 8% of the populations. As far as the displacement is concerned, they are all 5 or 6 times more than the general populations. So you find that there was, along with this process of increasingly losing control over land, forest, other restrictions of access to forest, and so on and so forth. So you find that there is a sort of alienations that has really been going on. And this, in fact, what do you find? That it's, earlier you find that they were on the margin, there's no doubt about it. But the kind of margin which began to take place in the post-independent era, in fact, accelerated the process of marginalization, the kind of underdevelopment which actually took place during the colonial rule. So internal colonialism, the influx of the people from outside into the tribal areas, movement of the tribal areas from their own place to elsewhere, increasing. You cannot think of tribals outside of land, but if you really look at today, you find that the increasing landlessness among the tribal populations. So what do you really find? That there is this process of marginalization which has come out of the larger development project itself. And in the in the reform phase, you find that this, whereas earlier it was a state which was largely responsible for the kind of development, now you find that with the coming of the private sector, the coming of the corporate world, you find that state, in fact, rather than trying to act as a safety valve, in fact, is in fact facilitating the process of dispossession of the land and other kinds of resources. You find that memoranda after memoranda is being signed in almost all states, where they're trying to take the mines, and therefore what you find that basically in tribal areas, what you find is basically there is a resistance. Everywhere you go, people are resisting, opposing the kind of development projects that have really been going on. And because of the resistance, you find that many of them also are moving to what is known as extremist politics. So what you really find is that this whole effort which has been made in the last 60 years of integrating the people on the margin, what is the kind of integrations? The more you have been able to integrate, the more people have really been have moved, or rather they have become marginalized. And this is the glaring example of what you find in the mainland tribal areas. As I said, Odisha, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, you go anywhere, you find increasing marginalization. And therefore you find, to my mind, it is not the integration which is a solution to the problems. If you really want to say solution to the problems, then it depends on the nature and type of integration that we are talking about. Northeast India is much less integrated with the mainland India. And yet you find that in all indicators of social development, Northeast India does far, far better than the mainland India. And they almost do as good as the larger populations in terms of development indicators. So what really I'm trying to say is that all this idea that you integrate the tribals and there will be automatic development, that's not really the question. One has to raise the questions, what is the nature and type of integrations that we are talking about, and that is the most crucial problem. And the type of integration that we have really talked about is one where you want to absorb them, you want to conquer them, you want to dispossess them, and therefore this is precisely what has given rise to various kinds of extremist movements, not only in mainland India, but also in the Northeast India. Thank you so much.